Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back here to today's edition of Intuitive Angling, and really appreciate you guys coming by the channel to spend some of your day with me. And we are going to be talking about and making the case why we need to get rid of polygraphs in bass fishing tournaments. This has been a hot topic over the past 6 months or so. A lot of hoo-ha going on, a lot of debate, a lot of just, controversy and drama. So I've got a solution to the problem we're going to talk about today, how we really just need to get rid of the polygraphs and go to a different route with that. So we'll get into that in today's episode. Also, guys, thank you very much out there for everybody that's taken time to subscribe here to Intuitive Angling over the past week. Really appreciate that. Also appreciate everybody that's taken advantage of the channel memberships where you get extra videos every week that aren't seen by the public. Appreciate that. And just want to invite one other thing. Tackle Warehouse has got a huge spring fishing sale going on right now. They got some unbelievable discounts on tackle. If you guys are wanting to take advantage of it, I'll put my Tackle Warehouse link in the description. You guys can use that link to get some good tackle, and it's a good way to support Intuitive Angling. So thank you very much there. Okay, guys, unless you've been living under a rock over the past couple months, there's been a plethora of polygraphs and disqualifications and just everything circulating, rule breaking, primarily on the Bassmaster Elite Series, but there's other ones too. There's other circuits this goes on. And guys, this is nothing new. It's like I've been fishing bass tournaments since the late 70s. Polygraphs have always been part of the events, and it's time for them to go. And I want to explain to you what the deal is. So first of all, let's talk about the polygraph a little bit. One of the reasons that polygraphs should not be allowed in tournaments and have no place in tournaments is the inherent flaw in a polygraph test, because polygraph tests do not detect lying. All they do is detect a biophysical response to a question that the examiner asks. And that is influenced by tons of different factors. It's like you can take a polygraph test and you can be on some type of medication, or you have some type of unconscious response, and it's going to color the result of the test. Not all polygraph examiners are created equal. So you have some examiners that aren't as skilled as others. You have just the fact that there are things that people can do to alter the test. There are ways to alter a test, that a person can unconsciously do or consciously do based upon how they're able to control their emotions. And this is one of the reasons that they're not used in court. You don't see them used in evidence in court, is because there's a tremendous amount of flaws with that. So given that, it's like we have got to get rid of that test, because if you look at all of the drama that has been created around these rule violations, so much of it centers around polygraph examinations and the result of that examination, or people not taking it or whatever. And I can tell you guys, from somebody that has taken a polygraph test myself, it's a stressful situation. I talked about this in the video last week, but if you didn't see it, let me refresh a little bit what you have to go through. Now, I was polygraphed. I had to take a random polygraph test for making a top 10 in a FLW tournament. It probably been 15 or 20 years ago, probably. Lake Gunnersville is down there. Nothing, I wasn't accused of anything. I got drawn out to be they have a random test they give. So anyway, once I got notified by the tournament director I had to take this test, immediately you get nervous, because it's like you start thinking about all the possible things that you may or may not have done intentionally or unintentionally. So, I was confident because I knew that I hadn't broken any rules, but at the same time, it's like, am I thinking, it's like, God, did somebody say something to me at a gas station about fishing that he shouldn't have said? Or all this stuff goes through your mind. So anyway, they take you into this room that's like an interrogation room. Literally, it's like you go in there, and then you've got this polygraph machine, and they strap you up with everything. They strap you up with like these monitors that they stick on your chest, and they got stuff that goes around your stomach. They got probes on your fingers, on your head. It's just like you're getting, strapped up to this test, and I don't care who you are, that creates anxiety. Some people get so nervous or so, just upset by it, that colors the result of the test. So there's a ton of different reasons why polygraph tests are not admissible as evidence in court, and why they should just not have any place in the tournaments. Get rid of the polygraph test, and then you simplify and you take away a lot of the issues that we have now. Given that, you have to have a fair playing field. I mean, you got to ensure you have some type of a where there's not any cheating going on, and this is how you do it. Number one is you've got to have a observer or marshal in the boat with everybody at the same time. That's right. That right off the bat is going to take care of any on the water cheating. But the problem, or rule violations. But the problem with that is a lot of this rule violations comes with getting the no information rule, violating the no information rule. We've seen this over and over again, that so many of these disqualifications are about people, getting info, or, hearing info, or using info, or whatever with that. Okay, the next thing you do is you get rid of that. You get rid of this no information rule, because it works without it. Here's the thing, why it works is, like, you look at like the BFLs or the Toyota series, they don't have the information rule, like the Bassmaster Elites or something like, or the Bass Pro Tour. Bass Pro Tour and the Elite series have these long standing, no information for months and months and months. And some of the smaller tournaments don't have any no information rules. Some of them are a little bit different. Some of them allow you to get information anytime that you want, even up to the day of the tournament, and even after, between the tournament, but maybe not during the tournament day when you're fishing. Like, you can't pull up to a dock and have grandma tell you that there's a 5-pounder under her dock, something like that, or ask her, but a lot of them just don't have, you can get information anytime you want. And this is why that is the way to go, because I can tell you from somebody that has fished professionally forever, there's a saying that's like, you can't catch somebody else's fish, and there's a truth to that. It's like, when somebody tries to give you information out there, guys, by far, most of the time it never works, for a couple different reasons. It's like, let's say, for example, you call up, or somebody calls you up, or you call somebody up, you're getting ready to go to a tournament, and you go, hey, where's a good spot for me to fish, or where are they biting at? Number one, they're telling you something that's worked for them over the, whenever it was. And anglers are different. It's like every angler has a different type of strategy and approach. So when one angler uses a technique or tells you about a technique, that doesn't mean that you're going to catch them with his particular technique. Prime examples, Aaron Martins was a real close friend of mine, and we worked together in tournaments all the time. Aaron could tell me how he was catching them, and I could never catch them like he did. Vice versa, like, he'd tell me he's catching them on a little scrounger with 4-pound line and ripping them, and I couldn't do it. So you can't fish somebody else's fish. And the other thing with that, which is even more important, the reason why this no information rule needs to get taken out of the tournaments, is that they are telling you something that was working. That doesn't mean that it's working now. I don't care if it was the day before. Bass change every single day. It's like they're not in the same places every day. Things change daily. It's like, just because somebody said that they caught a 20-pound bag last week over on that main lake point, that doesn't mean that they're going to be there today. And more than not is, when somebody gets information, it winds up burning them. More than not. It's like, if you take 100 cases about pros getting information, guys, I bet 80-90% of those, it never works. I can't tell you how many times I've heard people say, hey, some such as such told me he caught him over here last week. I went over there and tried it, never had a bite. So this whole thing about people getting information and like it's some huge advantage to them, is not true. Now, the bigger picture, what we need to talk about, if you want to level the playing field and you want to ensure that there's fairness going on, is you have to have a baseline where an equipment limitation baseline. Because here's my point. I don't care if somebody gets information at all. I could care less. It's like, I don't get it myself. The only information I'll get is if I want to know water clarity and water temperature. I don't want to know where people are catching them or this type of stuff. But so that's one topic of conversation. But the bigger picture, what needs to change with this, when you're wanting to ensure a level playing field, and that's what we're talking about here, we're trying to make a level playing field, is you put this baseline for equipment limitations. Because you try, somebody answer me this, it's like, how does somebody justify saying it's fair and legal for one angler to have $50,000 worth of spotlighting equipment on his boat, and then the next angler in the tournament that doesn't have any money, can't afford anything except like a 7-inch screen 2D sonar, but they're competing in the same tournament? Now, that income disparity and that financial elitism by one person being able to use $50,000 worth of spotlighting equipment and nobody else can afford it, that is what needs to change right there. That is what is creating your unlevel playing field and giving anglers an advantage with that. You know, I'll give you one example. I just got back from that tournament in the Kentucky Lake, guys, and going into that tournament, I didn't think anyone spotlighting would be that big of a deal because the lake's flooded out and muddy. And while there was a lot of guys that caught fish normally, just normal fishing, there's a bunch of guys that caught them spotlighting bushes, spotlighting out in muddy water. So, you know, that has a huge impact, and that type of equipment is not equal to everybody. And that's what they're trying to do. When you're trying to set a rule about getting no information in a tournament, you're trying to set this equal baseline for people to follow the same rule where nobody gets information. But why can't you apply that to equipment? You know, that's just, to me, that's a huge example of hypocrisy in this sport. But I know there's some other issues with that. It's like when you're talking about the larger tournaments like the BFLs and the Toyota Series and the Bass Opens, you know, it's a pretty easy fix by not having a polygraph. You just have marshals or observers and you take away the no information rule, and then you don't have anything to worry about. But when you're talking about like buddy tournaments, that requires something else, because buddy tournaments are just a completely different animal. And there's always been cheating in buddy tournaments, guys. And there's been polygraphs in buddy tournaments where people have guys, there is so many examples about people that have done good or won tournaments in buddy tournaments and passed polygraph tests. I'm not saying that, you know, people are cheaters, but polygraph tests has always been a big part of buddy tournaments. So that's sort of something that requires a little bit of brainstorming to figure out around it. But you take away polygraph test and you take away that no information rule, and you eliminate so much of the freaking strife and drama that we have right now. Imagine a world, guys, where you didn't have polygraph, you didn't have no information rule, and you didn't have forward facing sonar. You know, all the stuff that people argue and gripe about, you know, over the past year would simply go away. And I'm not saying I'm not trying to say that by taking a polygraph test away that we're going to, you know, encourage more rule breaking. That's not the case. But you have to, you can't pick and choose which rules that you want to enforce in terms of that, as far as creating this level playing field. And right now it's just all over the place. But there's a lot of issues going on, man. There's a lot of problems that have really come to the surface over the past 6 months, and some of them are easy fixes and some of them aren't. But that's just sort of the inherent nature of what we do in tournament bass fishing. It's a unique sport. There's not anything else like it, and it comes with its own set of challenges. But in my opinion, that's the best way to do it. Set this, you know, real strict baseline for equipment limitations that you can monitor at each tournament. Get rid of the no information rule, because it's hurting people more than helping them. I can tell you guys right now, that no information rule is hurting more people than it's helping when they utilize it. And get rid of the polygraph and figure something else out with the buddy tournament. So that's just my opinion on it. And, you know, that's coming from somebody that's done this a long time. So I'd really be curious to get your guys' thoughts on that as well. So anyways, we'll talk later. See you.